All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 50. 50.
Right.
Yeah. We are half of 100 episodes through the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And things are shaping up for a big old battle.
Yeah.
Or at least skirmishes.
I would say that with all these characters under Yang's command now, we almost are set up to where we can't lose too badly here.
Right, because they got to be successive battles.
There's so many people that are on his team now with regards to this. So many people that are in his arsenal of tools, basically here, that when he and Reinhardt are basically ready to go and bring things to the Galactic theater of war here. I really do see this as being the ultimate opportunity for Yang to prove how well he can delegate resources properly.
Sure.
Because this isn't going to be one big fleet versus one super big fleet. This is going to be a lot of little maneuvers, like you were saying, a lot of little skirmishes and such. And it's not really going to be just a thing of where, Yang is showing off his, battle strategy genius or Reinhardt, but how well their subordinates then work, with their upper command.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. And Merkatz is with Yang, so how bad could it go?
Yeah, there's a lot of characters then that could be put up on the chopping block, and the next,
That's true.
set of episodes could be basically set up for a lot of them to die.
Yeah. The narrator has told us that the Empire will win eventually, so there is that.
Yes, the narrator do be spoiling things at times like that. But for all intents and purposes, in a lot of ways, the Empire winning doesn't mean the end of the world, the way the Alliance has kind of propagated that narrative.
Yeah.
So, Yang's talked about that with Julian, and Julian is basically the future of this, of this story in a lot of ways. So maybe we'll see some moves towards how a sort of peace could be established. Maybe via the Alliance being some sort of a vassal state.
Right.
Even though that feels more like in the monarchy style of things.
It's still better than being destroyed.
Well, yeah, but again, Reinhardt's with his, his full dictatorship, total rule. It might not be as something where he would accept some kind of Alliance intermediary.
That's
more
true.
Direct involvement in ruling them,
especially since he's kind of one at this point. Like Yang can try and pull something out, but Reinhardt's gonna win.
I think in some ways actually this is Yang's best chance he's ever had in the entire show to be able to actually win the war entirely.
That is very true.
I would say if anything, we could see this war get prolonged a lot if his plan to direct an assassination attempt on Reinhardt meets with any moderate success. Meaning if they just hospitalize him, just wound Reinhardt, I can see the invasion grinding to a halt for a good chunk of time.
Sure.
Yeah. But lots of pieces moving.
Yep.
And we're about to jump right into it. So let's do that. All right, everyone. Now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below. Then come back here for the discussion. All right, Yang just gave them a thrashing.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is a really, really interesting way to separate the ways in which the engagements of this war, this battle, the sequence of battles will lead, because they basically rapid fire went through a few. To, in some ways, the detriment story-wise with regards to how they portrayed the engagements. We're going to talk a little bit about that with regards to some tropes and stuff. But this was primarily a way to set up where Reinhardt would have a legitimate reason to isolate himself from the fleet, therefore setting up the ultimate bait. No, we don't want to use Bittenfeld. He's too obvious of bait.
Right, exactly.
We need to choose some bait that will look nice and cactus prickly and stuff, to where Yang will be like, ooh, we're going to lose a lot if we go after this bait, but it's too good. We have to go after it.
And that, in my mind, is the perfect bait, right? Because, it's not the don't let them know that it's bait, right? Because that just in general you want to do.
Right.
But if it's where it's no. This is bait. There's no question about that. But even though you know it's bait, you cannot afford to not take it.
Right.
Right? And so Reinhardt's doing that. I love it. And this is something where the things have been moved in such a way so that now it can more directly be a battle between Reinhardt and Yang.
Right.
Because one of the things that I was kind of curious how they were going to do here is, given the fact that Reinhardt is commanding so many fleets, right?
Yeah.
How do they make it really feel like it's that Yang versus Reinhardt that we want to see, without making it feel like Reinhardt is getting it easy, right? Like, just because he has all of these ships, he can beat Yang.
It's not a true
test of his intellect and his prowess, right?
Yep.
So now that we're in this situation, we can get that. And one of the things that I was kind of curious with is that by having the battles go in this way, because some of the battles I didn't really find satisfying, because it was like, oh, okay, that they didn't need, that admiral didn't need to do that. That felt kind of stupid. But by doing that, it's a disconnect from Reinhardt. It's basically because then the only thing that Reinhardt would have maybe been failing at in that aspect is the fact that he assigned this person to the job, or he
reinforced this many fleets to support.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the main crux of the failure can be pinned, in the narrative, right, on the admiral, not on Reinhardt. That way it doesn't make Reinhardt feel incompetent.
Exactly. And this is the difference between tactics and strategy. Reinhardt is the one that is called primarily to devise the strategy, the big game plan, the big picture. And as long as he's able to keep a clear, level head with regards to how he operates and delegates the admirals with regards to taking care of the tactics, then we can end up in a situation where things work out for the most part, primarily because they have the overwhelming advantage with regards to numbers, and supplies, and everything of that nature.
Exactly.
However, in this episode, we saw when it came down to tactics that Yang has an overwhelming superior advantage when it comes to a fleet-by-fleet bit of maneuvering here. Now, could this be just a thing of saying, well, we can talk about this trope a little bit, the aura of stupidity was in effect?
Right.
I would say yes.
With a couple of them, probably.
For some facet of it, definitely.
Right.
It is very tricky in a show that has this fast of pacing in order to actually give the characters enough time to tell us what's going on with regards to when we see it, and then be able to follow up as to why it made sense that things went this way when they present the story moving along at this pace. So we get only enough time with each of these engagements to be able to go, okay, Yang is smarter than them. That is the conclusion that we came about, regardless of whether the aura of stupidity was in effect or not. It's just the idea that at this time, Yang is smarter on a tactical level than all three of those admirals.
Right. And that's, we already knew that. Yeah, exactly. We get to see it in play. And the one of the things that can be really tough with things like, fancy words like aura of stupidity and things like that is that people do make mistakes, right? So it's not like that characters making mistakes is bad, or it's like, oh, well, then we can't buy this victory or whatever.
Right.
But it's more of selling us on why they made the mistake, right? In some cases, like with the, I forget his name, was it Wallen, or the one that...
Wallen was the redhead that caught the supply ships.
No. What was the one that that was like, oh, I've been tricked by this before.
That was Lennenkampf.
Yeah. That's something where it's like, okay, cool. I like that. It's something that ties into the character, right? It's the thing of, I've been duped by this before, and he potentially did avoid a worse failure, right? Because he didn't go too far into it, right?
Yeah.
So
but given that Yang was planning,
he was playing
advance.
Him specifically,
exactly.
Right? Not just, I'm going to do a general tactic.
Right, which he was only able to do because he got an early heads up about which flagship was heading this fleet, which he recognized and went, oh, okay, so this is Lennenkampf, who I faced at Iserlohn. Excellent. Let's see if I can get in his head a little bit and then fire a blast of, I believe, like actual missiles in advance of his maneuvering, so that by the time he is in a retreating position, the missiles will blow up, and then he'll be able to follow through on that, give them a little bit of a pounding, and then be like, yeah, run away. But if you do try to keep fighting on that front, you will lose. Every single one of the admirals, despite having different levels of incompetence with regards to how they address Yang, all chose to leave on their own terms. And this was something that Reinhardt brought up at the end, was that what makes a great commander on this field of battle, basically, is that they have to know when to withdraw and how to withdraw. And we saw different, I would say, tiers of that.
Right, from absolute stupidity of the person who, even when expressly told to call for backup, didn't.
He did call for backup. Again, we have to remind ourselves.
No, sorry, I'm talking the person that had the supply line.
Oh, the supply lines.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Like you totally even forgot about that guy because it's
right. No, yeah.
Right. And that was one of those ones where like I feel like that way that the show addressed like Reinhardt realizes that Yang is like, this is the guaranteed attack from Yang that they have, right?
Yeah.
If they're getting supplies, Yang has to attack because that's their one weakness in a state like this, right? So he sends this guy, and granted, he's not the best of Reinhardt's like people, but he tells him specifically, hey, this is an important job. This is what you do. I'm telling you to your face. This is what you do if/when you get attacked, right?
And then the guy was like, yes,
definitely.
I will offer up my life to you if I fail. And then he's like kind of like sleeping on the job practically.
Yep.
That was an instance of where there was no, I would say, aura of stupidity in that case there.
That guy was just stupid from the get-go.
That guy was just stupid from the get-go. He was primarily introduced in this episode to fail, to die, and to showcase that Yang is trying to harry at Reinhardt's fleet rather than attack it directly. So, thus, any time that we have an engagement in this episode, it is not with Reinhardt's full fleet. It is with an advanced force that is carrying out some kind of minor objective. Reconnaissance, capturing supplies, reinforcing another fleet that went out for reconnaissance.
Sure. And so the only like beef really I have with the bit with supplies is that Reinhardt sent that guy. Like it felt a little bit like Mittermeier offered. It's like, oh no, that would have been perfect. Like I would have been stoked to see Mittermeier defending the supplies, and then Yang comes up and it's like, what you gonna do?
I mean, but Mittermeier's made mistakes too. Like,
definitely.
Like,
but
I think partially what it is we have to remember that this fleet is big, but it has a limited amount of numbers that it has to its thing there. And that guy was a rear admiral, which means he's not a big shot.
No.
Like, he is he has a few thousand ships at best. At best.
Right.
The big ones, the big fleets, have the 15 to 20,000 ships where they, like, either match Yang's numbers or just completely have way more than him.
And one of the things that is helpful in order to, like, just for the sake of expediency with this narrative bit here, is that we don't know the exact numbers of all the people on the different sides.
It's very important that that's the case,
Right, because the impression that I've got with Yang's fleet, and this could totally be wrong, but the impression is that it's around 30,000 because like he had around 15 or so thousand ships.
He had around 17, I believe.
Yeah, 17, and then from Iserlon, and then
Bukak had about 33,000.
Had about 33,000, but they lost a sizable chunk of them.
Well over like an overwhelming number of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So okay, it's a much smaller fleet that Yang has to work with. But one of the things that means here is that Yang has to fight as a single unit. He can't really afford to spread himself out.
Right. They mentioned that with, I believe it was Mittermeier who was specifically complaining about that when the Admirals all came together in their downtime and were like, we need to hash this out and talk about this. And he said, he is messing with us with one fleet, which gave me the vibe, personally, that it is not 30,000 ships, that is actually back down closer to that 17,000 ships because it is just the one fleet. And most of the time when they talk about one fleets, they don't go above 10,000, really.
I think the biggest we've seen was like 25,000 for like a really big single fleet.
Right. Like, like the equivalent of like the first fleet for the Alliance, where it was like the fleet, which was specifically there to be like, Yang, don't you dare try and come back here and take us over. And Yang's like, yada, yada, I'm not going to do that. So,
and that would be something that would make me understand a lot better the kinds of decisions that Reinhardt was making. Because like for some of them, like when he sent in Lennonkampf, it could totally be something where he just needs like quick response, so he can't get all of the fleets
That's
there.
What I thought primarily.
Yeah, and that would make a lot more sense. But there was this part of me that was like, wait, Reinhardt, why are you... The whole point was to find Yang. Why are you only sending like one fleet? Like it's probably that the rest of them were going to come later, and it's you're the advanced force kind of a thing. But and also the person who went there earlier should still be there because they weren't ordered to engage. So then you would have two fleets. It shouldn't be much of a problem at that point.
Reinhardt might have also been thinking that, like you were saying, Steinmetz wasn't engaging the fleet. It was that he got a message well in advance of them even engaging there. It was something that he, like in the way the show was edited, he basically got it, looked at it, and went, awesome, go send, to support him there.
Yep.
That's your duty. We go cut off screen to, going back to Steinmetz and Yang, and they're doing their tactics and stuff. If Steinmetz had just had the thing of where he's like, well, we found him, we stay, and maybe we do a half encirclement thing, but we don't advance at all.
Right. We just stay there. Stay back. Yeah.
Which I will say, if people are going to come back and say like that was something that was actually being done, and they didn't engage, he did just kind of sit in a half encirclement. Jacob brought up a very interesting point in between the discussion when we went back and looked at it, and it was that if he set up a half encirclement strategy and didn't advance, why were they close enough to the black hole that they couldn't end up launching the fighters? Which is like, oh, that's a good point, because Yang's fleet was at the billion kilometers bit. They shouldn't have crossed fleets at all. It should have been Yang's. They shouldn't have both crossed each other's fleet. It should have been Yang's fleet that broke through to cross through them, and them just forming up behind them is just saying, no, that's
right. Like,
that's just them engaging, 1.25 billion kilometers away
exactly.
from.
They wouldn't have had the pressure of being up against the black hole if Yang came to them.
Exactly.
Right. So then it's the no, you really goofed up because you were literally told, reconnaissance, find them, because in our big numbers, that's when we crush them.
Exactly.
And you know that Yang is a genius, and he's literally sitting there by the black hole. Now, the black hole, that is a really cool way to have a tempting bait. Right?
Oh yeah, because it's really tempting.
Because
that was my thing.
We are up against the wall, so like if you did manage to beat us here, you would be a legend. You would crush us, and then you would be the one who defeated the miracle Yang.
That's what I think the point was that we still have that little leftover of the Admirals seeking glory, which was established a little bit more recently, about 4 episodes ago, when they brought up the idea that the Admirals are thinking about the future beyond
their
this
future
war.
specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if they have big accolades that they can return to the Empire with, they can go, look, I was the one that routed Yang's fleet and destroyed like half of them near that black hole. I performed this really cool pincering maneuver.
It was awesome.
Super dangerous. I barely made it out there.
I managed to do it.
But I managed to do it. Yeah. And because, he only had 5,000 ships after that engagement, Reinhardt was able to finish the blow.
Exactly.
And I was awarded, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I totally see the whole thing of where he's like, even though this is potentially a trap, I don't care, because this is something where we could just win everything right here. And
it's I'll take the gamble, I'll roll the dice, and if it doesn't work, my bad.
But we will say, because I agree with you on this one primarily, Jacob, is that this definitely felt like the Ore of Stupidity a little bit. It was an instance of where a person in Reinhardt's Admiralty directly did something that was extraneous to the orders in which he was given, and it led to his overwhelming defeat.
Yeah.
Now, he did execute, which is a cool thing of basically just reminding us that this ties into the point that Reinhardt made at the end of the episode, that he knew not only when to retreat, because he didn't really know exactly that.
Because he attacked when he
shouldn't have. But he knew how to retreat.
Yeah.
Which is a way of saying that he was willing to put it all on the line to get the remains of his fleet out of there just fine.
Yep, in the black hole slingshot thing, that was really cool. I like that. But because the main thing that I would have hoped that he would do in his position is that it's if he's going to take the gamble, all right, this is probably something where I'm essentially now battling wits with Yang. If this is he would probably be doing this as a trap of some kind. What would his ideal tactic be here?
Yeah, they had his...
Encircle me, like breakthrough, whatever.
Right, they had his specific, number 2 and 3, basically kind of giving a little bit of feedback regarding what would be some correct ways to handle this and stuff. And they did come up with some interesting ideas, but the idea in which Yang basically just full-on goes aggressive right out the gate after that was something that just felt a bit too... maybe simple in that mind there.
Right.
And they've mentioned that, I think, a few times this episode, was that all these admirals were competent, thus they were predictable. There was some element about their tactics being ones that were sound, for the most part, they know what they're doing, that Yang was able to go, the smart move to do would be to do this. And because they're smart enough to know to do that, I will do the one thing well in advance and prepare for it that counters that thing.
Right.
There is an aspect of this in a lot of video games and games that have some kind of like a meta with regards to like countering and predicting your opponent's moves. Like card games do this a lot as well. And I feel like this is something where Yang basically was like, oh no, I built my decks specifically to counter the top 2 meta decks out there.
Sure.
And I look like easy pickings. Like you should have a 65% win rate against me, but I prepped things to where I brought it actually to like a 50-50, and you don't know that. So it's more like a 60-40 in my favor.
And yeah, because that's the thing you said about them being competent and them being predictable. I really like that, because then it makes it less of a thing of them being stupid and doing instead basic, but then also doing something that is still stupid, but it plays into their ego in that they assume that Yang is going to be stupid,
or like, that they assume that Yang was going to be simple. I think that one of the things that comes into tactics that gets a little bit funky here, and that's something that they brought up with Ruintal here, is he was saying, is Yang willing to throw away his strategic advantage, or sorry, no. He was talking about strategic disadvantages here. But basically the idea of sacrificing strategy for tactics. I believe that was the general point of it being brought up.
Which makes sense, because they need to do guerrilla tactics at this point, basically, which is just do tactics, not strategy.
Right. And yet, because of this, the overall strategy of the Admirals, and something that I think we're foreshadowing a lot as well if Reinhardt does actually die anytime soon, is that they all have different ideas about how to do the strategy.
Yeah.
They are not unified in this aspect here. They need Reinhardt basically to give them a strategy that they can all then execute their tactics on. This is what makes Mittermeier and Ruintal so terrifying, is that they're given the autonomy to then be that duo in, a MOBA game where they're just running around they know how to work together specifically. They jive, and that's something that's special when you're basically being given a strategy that gives you that level of autonomy. But we were hearing things like, no, why don't we just go take Heinesen?
And I love that Bittenfeld brought it up, like, because in character, it fits for him.
It fits for him, yeah.
But then I also loved Mittermeier's response of, okay, well, yeah, let's say we did that. We would win in name, but Yang would still be out there. And then, and
eventually we would need to
need to leave, right? Because we can't just be here forever. And then when that happens, then he could take it back, and then that would rally the people.
Yeah, it would give them a political rebirth and a morale rebirth in some ways, because they would be like, yeah, Yang saved us from the oppressive conquerors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And given the fact that they got this in with Fejon, now they have Iserlon Fortress back, but they won't be able to attack in this way again.
Yep.
So, like, I really like that. And then, but then we still had Mariendorf bringing it up of like, I think you should have just go straight to Heinesen, right? So even if there's a bunch of different options and they all have their pluses and minuses, it's not like an objective, clear decision of which one is the best. Right. It's the, different people have different perspectives and areas of expertise, so they'll have different opinions on which one wins out on value.
Right, which makes this next set of things that have to happen in the story really exciting, because there's no way to predict how it's going to go. Yeah. The fact that Reinhardt is basically saying, I will play into your game, Yang. I will set myself up as bait because I can take it. What you bring to the table and what I'm seeing happen with my Admirals, I'm learning from you. Okay, excellent. Your tactics, we're on even terms. I've then put you up to my level. So in some ways, to my men, I'm bringing myself down in that I am more like a man than you, but that means Yang must be too. He is not a god, of the battlefield or anything like that. He is doing a few things better than all of you, but that is okay because we're about to give him the ultimate prize that he cannot ignore, and then you guys can have the glory come in and just wipe him out, just completely. There would be no escape from him trying to avoid probably 8 or 9 fleets they'll be coming in
Yang
to
would
rescue
be
him.
absolutely crushed, and that's the point. Yang knows that probably he would do something like this, of a sort, right? Because he's wanting Reinhardt to come face him in single combat. The only way that Reinhardt would do that in a way that Yang would actually want to engage, because he's not going to attack him when he has all his fleets with him, right? Is when he's by himself. So Reinhardt would obviously have some ace in the hole or something.
Yep.
The bit with Ruintal,
though, let's talk about that.
Is great because then it's something where
Alec and Revan, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. It's something where things can go differently than how you would originally think. But there are a lot of different variables here.
Yep.
One, I want to bring up the idea that when Reinhardt was talking to Mariendorf, or no, to Emil.
Yes.
And he was saying, I can't be imitated.
Yeah.
That screams to me of arrogance, right? Because Reinhardt is very competent, but that seemed like the kind of thing of there are none like me, there are always men like you.
There is also a good general principle of that no one is imitatable.
Right. You have to figure out your own way of doing your thing.
Hero worship in general is a flawed way of living.
Yes. But there's that part of me that's like, okay, is that something where some of the things that Reinhardt did this episode that, well, maybe it was just that he didn't have that Kirheis to be like, hey, Reinhardt, would this be a potential, like, that's good, but would this be something that you're not potentially seeing?
Right.
And so things like Mariendorf coming in and being like, actually, I don't think you should punish one of them severely like that. The whole thing with Isolon.
Sure, yeah.
I love that. That was great. But then, there's Ruintal, but then there's also the thing that Mittermeier said, because Mittermeier was talking about how there's no one that could replace Reinhardt. Like when they were talking about like, oh, he doesn't have an heir, Mittermeier was like, well, even if he did have an heir, it doesn't matter who it would be. It wouldn't be the same, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that he was saying that in Ruintal's presence, and Ruintal had that little pause, because like Ruintal wants to be that successor, whether it's through legitimacy or anything like that, or taking power.
Takeover, yeah.
Right. He wants to be that person. So the fact that Mittermeier said that, it's like, ooh, that's is there some potential division amongst them? And if they act, how many of the other people around them will follow them? Because they are charismatic. They've got, they lead a lot of people, but they're not like the only admirals that Reinhardt has, right? So even if Reinhardt gets like, okay, they don't come, but then there's like 3 or 4 other fleets that do, just on a numbers angle, that should still be enough to overwhelm Yang, right? But
I liked also the arguments between the admirals regarding how they approach this, because what they're facing here is that awkward moment when you have all the advantages, and I mean all the advantages. You're doing everything right, and yet, for some reason, regardless of what situation they're in specifically, this happens a lot, where your plans just don't meet up with expectations.
Right.
Now, this is something where you can look internally, and all the admirals, I believe, are doing this on some level, and they're going, we each necessarily are bringing something to the table that is good, but we also might need to look and see, like, what parts are we not necessarily being as optimal with regards to that there. So they're thinking about this on that tactical level, but what they end up discussing primarily is the strategy. So they're not talking about fleet movements and tactics on the, like,
nitty-gritty details,
detail kind of side of things. Right. They're bringing up the idea that, okay, specifically because of, that Yang is competent on this level that makes him able to execute on the tactics and stuff, is there a strategic method that we're missing here? And a couple of them brought up some interesting points. The one that I think was really good to acknowledge is that, yes, he is fighting a guerrilla warfare style, here, which means that he is able to keep moving from base to base, and he's not staging, his fleet from any specific key point, which would make certain types of reconnaissance more effective. So finding him is not necessarily a good use of resources, because if we split up too much, he'll find us at a point where we're not necessarily ready, which is kind of what Wallen did. Because I want to give a little bit of credit to Wallen in this bit here. Wallen arrives, sees the supply ships and Yang's fleet, sees them disorganized, and goes, is that because they didn't expect us to get here? Which was part of what the intel had suggested as well. And he's like, it must be. Okay, let's advance. Oh, there's a little bit of engagement there. Okay, we'll be a little bit careful, move back. Okay.
Yeah, we'll take their supply stuff. That's what we need. It's
Right,
great. Yeah.
right. But he didn't just rush in immediately. He kind of waited, baited them, and then
Yep.
Yang's fleet continues to run away, and he's like, oh, okay, they're abandoning the supply stuff. Cool, let's move in. Wait, there's something on there. Back up. Oh, it's enemy like, ships or something there. They're firing on us. Okay, now we'll shoot them. Oh, wait, they were filled with helium. There is no way that he could have known that they were filled with helium. But the fact that he basically got humiliated, like twice, basically, in this little engagement here.
Yeah.
And then didn't commit to, I have to finish what I started.
Uh-huh.
He's just like, nope, I'll leave. It's basically saying that he's willing to let his ego of how stupid it made him look go aside just to be like, I don't need to lose any more men to some other plan that I didn't see coming here.
Right, and that I definitely appreciate. And one of the things that I also liked about it that I remembered once you brought it up is that Yang did a double blind on it.
Yeah,
because they were suspicious of the things. Now the fact that because it was brought up, this could be a trap. Why are these? They could have. This could be all part of their plan. We don't necessarily know that there are supplies in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's hold back. They did get a little bit too close, but there was the whole thing of they snuck some of their own people into there. Gotcha.
They're
okay.
firing on us now.
Right. That's the ploy.
Right.
We don't have to worry about it anymore.
Now we can just fire on them.
Now we can just fire on them. They had already kind of messed up by getting too close originally.
Right.
But there's once the enemy or the enemy units pop out of the supply bits, it's like, okay, cool. That's what the game was. We don't have to be looking for that trap in what we could see now, given that they weren't actually that disorganized and things like that. That it was a trap, but we found it. That kind of thing.
I loved this little bit where Bittenfeld actually called someone an idiot in this whole engagement here, because Bittenfeld is our lovably stupid, charge in and just do things kind of guy here. But we had a vice admiral chime in from, another table to the admiral's discussion, and it was great to be like, Vice Admiral, shut up,
Right.
go sit down over there.
That almost seems like
The adults are
Thurnison's-
talking over here.
Right. It almost seems like Thurnison's gag is that he'll constantly just speak up when it's like, no, stop, just
Right.
stop.
And he brings up maybe if we can analyze that pattern, then we should be able to calculate the supply base that Yang will appear at next. And just Bittenfeld just baka. Are you stupid? Are you an idiot? I love it because it's basically saying, I see no point in waiting when we have the overwhelming numbers here. Mm-hmm. So why would we do an even more convoluted form of waiting, which is we'll sit and analyze.
Yeah.
And then he says Yang has been moving around like a cat in heat, which is
I love that he always uses the sexual metaphors.
Yes, he uses all kinds of ridiculous metaphors.
Yep.
And then he says the most simple but I would say
Effective.
pretty decent idea of we should just attack the enemy capital directly. Even though Mittermeier brings up the thing of where
the legit point of
that's why we can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just something to bring up in general. If things go this way in which Reinhardt's bait thing he just doesn't take it at all. Yang just no, I'll get a better chance later. One of the things I really think Reinhardt should do is he should split his fleet up. Now,
okay.
when I mean split it up is legitimately take half of it and go to Heinessen. Just go straight to Heinessen.
Sure.
Send the other fleet to a different area and have Yang realize Yang can't split himself up.
And he can't take even one of the halves probably if it's
just too big.
Right, because Reinhardt still has he's lost a decent amount of ships from this episode, but I'm guessing he still has probably around 150,000, maybe 120,000 once you don't count the supply ships,
Yeah.
of actual fighting forces.
Right.
But that'd be still 2 fleets of 60,000. That is plenty.
That is way
there
more
is
than you'd need.
there is no way that Yang would be able to actually fight one of those fleets, assuming that the other fleet didn't do anything stupid. They didn't split themselves up so that Yang could pick them off. They didn't have some idiot in command that would make some huge blunder.
And you can even make one of them smaller, one of the sections of the fleet smaller, by having it be like Mittermeier and Ruhenthal going off, and have them basically just man a huge portion of it that you're all right, I guess that's wonderful there. And, put a couple other admirals with them.
Sure.
But then that could be all the bait you need, Reinhardt, is then you're I have 70,000 ships. Mm-hmm. Yang, come after me. I'm alone, you know? And then Yang will be like, well, I guess I'm going after supply ships again, you know?
Right,
and go after the little stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just take Heinesen.
Well, and this was...
There is no way that Yang would do the, I'm going to defend Heinesen from siege tactic.
Right.
He can't afford to do that. And
this was kind of the thing that I was hoping would happen at the beginning of the show with the whole supply ship thing, is that Reinhardt would do that. He'd split into two forces, 70 and 50 or something like that, or, and they were stronger at that point because there were more of them, and then be like, yeah, we know that Yang has to go after the supply ships, so we will make it so impossibly... stupidly impossible to actually go after them, that eventually we'll get the supplies over here, we'll continue building up our base of operations, and we can make this sustainable so that way we can't be taken down by the death by 1,000 cuts kind of a thing.
Right. The main problem that they brought up to pressure them into doing something that would be a little bit awkward here is that, unfortunately, there is already signs of an eventual food shortage, which is something that even if they had gotten the supplies for the most part through there, Yang would eventually find ways to attack the supply lines.
Yeah.
And successfully. That is probably one of the weakest parts of any invasion ever, is that if you have a mobile force that can move anywhere within your own territory relatively with ease and also without alerting the enemy, one of the first things you attack is the supply lines. And that's been a thing since before any kind of mechanized anything with cavalry and stuff.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll just go around you.
Yep.
Ruin all the resource gathering stuff.
No, yeah.
Just go back out and be like, what are you going to do?
It's making me think of like NE RTS, right? You don't try and fight their army. You try and just sneak a few troops over there so you can attack their villagers, right? There you go.
Yeah. And even though that's not realistic from the resource side of things,
and it doesn't apply here. Yeah,
it still is something that works in most types of engagement, but especially works in this very common one, which feels very much like a naval force that has moved its way into dangerous enemy territory, and thus either needs to forage or have supply ships coming through, which are slow, unprotected, and very predictable in their movements, meaning that you either need to devote a large percentage of your force to protect them, which slows down the invasion, by the way, by a lot, giving your enemies more time to maneuver, or you just hope there's enough supply ships that plenty of them get through. Either way is bad for the invasion force in terms of the overall success in the short term.
I wonder if...
Yeah, here we're at.
This is probably something that wouldn't work for obvious reasons. I'm curious, though, if they would be able to get dual supply lines going now that they have Iserlon back.
It's
probably too far, like that they would have to actually clear a path from where they are to Iserlon to get the supply lines working again.
Yeah, the main issue with that strategy, I'll bring up the map here for the galaxy here, but the main issue with that, I believe, is that the Fejon corridor is one that they have basically actual planetoids that they can stage a whole lot of stuff and send supplies there rather easily, whereas the Iserlon corridor is basically just
it's farther away, and like Ruintal was able to get here, but that took a while. And
I would also assume this is more of a war zone area in general, where they're not going to have in the past wanted huge supplies right here in general.
Okay.
Primarily, that's my guess. But the other thing is that the actual section where they were at, which is Gandharva here, this is a spot that is near the southern, on the galaxy side of things, much closer to the Fejon corridor,
and also quite close to Heinesen. Yeah.
Yes. Heinesen is
it's a few planets away,
a few jumps away.
Yeah.
But it would probably be much easier to send all the stuff through the Fejon corridor, since they also went and they basically just took the Rantamario junction point here.
Right, which is why they want the basic Gandharva, so that way they can be close, since that is kind of a choke point for that section of Alliance space.
Right. It either makes them, because they were doing the battles in Vermillion, because they said at the end of the episode that this was the Battle of Vermillion Part 1. So it's basically that they made an advancement up towards the top side here, which is another jump closer towards Heinesen. Yeah, let me bring this up here.
Oh man, but that line of "and for a moment Reinhardt was happy," just at the idea that he would face Yang.
Huh, weird. I was pretty sure they said that it was the, whoops, that was in the post thing here. For some reason, the subtitles glitched and showed it. Okay, so the next episode is the Battle of Vermillion.
Okay, that's all right. Well, we know then where Reinhardt's bait is going down.
All right, well then, y'all, let's get hyped for that. And if you want to,
one thing I forgot to mention: if Ruental doesn't come to Reinhardt's aid, right?
Yeah.
And even if Reinhardt wins, right? If it isn't a decisive victory and Yang manages to get away, at that point there will still be essentially another civil war within the Empire, because Reinhardt will have to deal with Ruental and probably Mittermeier. And the force that Ruental had at Iserlohn was 30,000 ships. So, and then however much Mittermeier has and however that plays out on both sides. But that is then, even if Reinhardt wins, that is a huge loss to the Empire.
Yeah, I do feel like Ruental will be patient, not jump the gun with regards to how he executes on this idea.
Yeah.
And basically just end up falling with no actual results.
Sure, maybe he has some way to make an excuse so that it's like, oh, he gets there a little bit later, but not like you were abandoning me kind of later.
Right, but Ruental doesn't also command the other admirals, meaning that he can't stop them from saving Reinhardt.
Sure, unless he does something that seems like regular orders that makes it so that when they turn back, they won't get there in time.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general. You can also check out our Twitch channel there.
Yes, we stream Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Mondays podcast, Tuesdays One Piece dramatic manga readings, Wednesdays and Fridays Caleb does gaming.
All right, I'm playing Hades right now.
And then Thursday I do gaming, Persona 4 Golden.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.